We're taught from day one that being accommodating, constantly available, and agreeable is the reliable path to being valued. The assumption is simple. Give people your time without friction, and they will respect you for it. But human psychology does not reward endless accommodation. When a resource requires zero effort to obtain, the brain devalues it as a matter of routine. This operates on what behavioral scientists call the scarcity principle. It is a hardwired mechanism. We automatically assign higher value to things and people that are difficult to access. Shifting your behavior to align with this principle changes the way others calculate your worth. Achieving this, however, requires breaking deeply ingrained habits of people-pleasing that often trigger intense social anxiety. We are going to conduct a return on investment analysis of 5 specific behavioral boundaries. The goal is to separate the actual psychological leverage you gain from the real risk of appearing uncooperative. This graph maps out the scarcity value curve, showing exactly how your availability correlates to your perceived value. At the lower end of the x-axis, being reasonably accessible builds healthy rapport. But as we move further right, the impact changes. Once your accommodation nears 100%, goodwill stops growing, and your perceived value drops off a cliff. The ultimate cost of constant availability is the complete commoditization of your time. You stop being a premium resource and become a public utility. The first shift requires you to cease 24/7 availability. The behavioral input here is intentionally delaying your responses and enforcing rigid windows for when people can reach you. Doing this immediately triggers the scarcity bias. It signals to others that your attention is a heavily competed for resource, forcing them to treat your time with more respect. The trade-off is immediate friction. Peers who expect instant gratification will be frustrated, and you assume the logistical risk of occasionally missing a genuinely urgent opportunity while you are offline. Shift 2 is eliminating over-explanation. This means delivering your decisions or rejections as complete declarative sentences, deliberately withholding the urge to justify your rationale. This projects a high level of self-assurance. By stating a decision without a defense, you remove the subtle perception that you are subconsciously seeking permission to act. The risk here is optical. Especially in corporate environments that prioritize extreme transparency, short, unexplained decisions can be easily misconstrued as cold or uncollaborative. Looking at this comparison matrix, we can see the exact costs and benefits of these first 2 shifts side by side. Both require you to absorb social friction upfront in exchange for long-term respect. Restricting your access and explanations forces others to respect your baseline boundaries, even if you have to sit with the immediate discomfort of their annoyance. Shift 3 requires increasing the frequency of your no. The cost of entry for this shift is enduring the acute, short-term internal anxiety required to look someone in the eye and reject their request. By rationing your agreement, you drastically increase the premium and weight of your yes. When you finally choose to give it, it is treated as a valuable asset rather than a default expectation. You will likely face temporary isolation or active conflict with specific individuals, usually the ones who previously benefited the most from your lack of boundaries. Shift 4 is stopping the chase for low interest. The required input is pure ego suppression. You must willingly withdraw your time and attention the moment it is not reciprocated equally. Walking away demonstrates high self-worth. It immediately halts the active devaluation of your time by proving you are willing to leave the table. The trade-off means accepting outright rejection. You will settle for a smaller social or professional pool as you actively filter out uninvested connections. Here is our updated comparison matrix tracking these engagement metrics. The pattern is clear. Higher internal discomfort yields a significantly higher external premium. Deliberately pruning these low-yield interactions shrinks your network, but leaves you with a vastly higher yield and far more respectful circle of influence. The 5th and final shift is relying strictly on action-based proof. To execute this, you must actively suppress the natural urge to verbally convince others of your value, intent, or skills. This entirely eliminates the salesman dynamic. Instead of pitching himself, you force others to judge you on undeniable, objective metrics and actual results. It is a significantly slower process for building initial trust. If you refuse to talk yourself up, you will often lose early ground to those who rely on charismatic, fast-talking persuasion. Returning to our matrix one last time, we add action-based proof, completing the board. We can now evaluate all 5 shifts together. True scarcity does not need to be loudly announced. It is quietly proven through action, and that is what secures deeper, unshakable respect over time. The psychological truth underlying these shifts is the intentional cessation of performance for unearned approval. Genuine scarcity is a byproduct of being selective with your focus. This quadrant chart determines which shifts are appropriate for you, measuring tolerance for social friction against the need for perceived value. For a people pleaser, the highest return comes from shifts 1 and 3, lowering availability and saying no. The anxiety trade-off is steep, but attacks the habit of over-accommodation. For an ambitious optimizer building executive authority, you need shifts 2 and 5. Stop over-explaining and rely on actions. The climb is slower, but builds structural respect. These shifts serve as defensive boundaries for your time and energy. They function by protecting your existing resources from external noise, maintaining your integrity without the need for deception. Setting these behavioral boundaries will create short-term discomfort, but that friction is the exact price you must pay to avoid the permanent, lifelong commoditization of your time.